Good afternoon, my name is Carl Bergmanson. Right now I'm not selling anything, I'm not running for anything, I'm just a regular guy like gal, or gal in your case, but like all of us. I wanted to talk today about the structure of government in the state of New Jersey, because I think that that is the first thing that anyone who really cares about representative government needs to talk about. We have a gentleman here from New York State, and he can tell us, I'm sure he's familiar with the differences. New York State is a much less corrupt state when it comes to ballot access. In fact, almost every other state is less corrupt than the state of New Jersey when it comes to ballot access. We have some of the most restrictive ballot access rules of any state, and you have to ask yourself, why is that? Why would anyone think that that's a good idea? And I ask people all the time who are Democrats or Republicans, why do you think it's a good idea to restrict people's access to the ballot? They can't answer because there is no good reason except to keep the people who are already in power and to prevent you and I from challenging them in any meaningful way. There are other things that they do, but one thing I think we can all agree, whether we're a socialist or whether we go all the way to the other end of the spectrum, ballot access is a fundamental right, because without ballot access, we don't live in a democratic republic. We live in a totalitarian state, and that's what we've slowly evolved into. We have in New Jersey what is the equivalent of a totalitarian state. If another government, some other government in some other country were to run a government like we run our government, our State Department would be condemning them because they fixed the system. They talk all the time about rigged elections in other countries, but they don't talk about the rigged elections in this country. If you don't have meaningful access to the ballot, you do not have free and fair elections. And that's what I think you, the Reform Party, and frankly anyone who cares about representative government should be concentrating on first, because if there's no free and fair elections, we're just wasting our time. And I don't like to waste my time. I like to spend my time on significant things. Now let's talk about New York State, because New York State has much more liberal, for lack of a better word, much more liberal ballot access rules. And what that does is it creates more pressure on the powers that be. You can run in New York State as a liberal and a Republican together and on both tickets. You run as a liberal and a Democrat. You can have 4 different candidates in the 4 major New York State parties. That puts more pressure on the powers that be. That's why the folks in New Jersey don't want it. They don't want more pressure. New Jersey is a state run basically by the bosses. Right now, you have an unholy alliance between the governor of the state of New Jersey and 2 of the major Democratic machines. They have basically taken over the state of New Jersey, and no one talks about it. Every once in a while, people were starting to figure out, to say, wait a minute, how come we just lost NJN on a sweetheart deal for Steve Adubado's son, Steve Adubato Jr.? How'd that happen? I thought we had a Republican governor. I thought we had a Democratic legislature. Well, I got news for you. We don't. We have a fiefdom. And they have created this, and they are stealing public assets, and they are taking them for their own personal benefit. That is not what representative democracy is about. That's what totalitarianism is about. So I would invite the Reform Party, and frankly any other person who cares about representative government, to really start to look at this issue from that angle. Why can't we have access to the ballot? Why do we have a sort of loser law that if you lose the primary in one of the major parties, you cannot then run as a third party? That's very unusual. Most states don't have that law. New Jersey has that law. Again, why? Because they don't want a meaningful attack by third parties, and they don't want a meaningful attack in the primary system. That allows them to undermine both at the same time. It's the beauty of that for them. They screw over not only the independents in their own parties, they also screw over the third-party candidates. And it's, again, the most important thing I think that anyone who cares about representative government could focus on, because without it, we have nothing. I was originally going to talk today about property taxes, and I will talk about property taxes because they are very important, probably the most important statewide issue to the average voter. If you go to the average voter and you say, what's the most important issue to you, they will tell you property taxes. Not everyone, but that is by far the biggest answer. Most surveys I've seen are 30 to 40%, that's the answer. The reason is we have, in many parts of the state, confiscatory property taxes. In my town, we have some of the highest property taxes in the United States of America and some of the highest property taxes in New Jersey. Why? You say to yourself, well, maybe that's because Glen Ridge doesn't raise a lot of local money, or they don't have, a lot of people say we don't have infrastructure, or we don't have ratables. That's a lot. When you look at the numbers, it has very little to do with ratables. What it has to do with is, a few years back, a couple decades ago now, the state passed a law with the express purpose and the stated purpose in the Constitution to relieve for property tax relief. It's called the income tax. We all pay it. Not you. Everyone else pays it. And the purpose of that income tax, stated right in the Constitution, is property tax, educational property tax relief. That's the only thing it can be used for. By law, it's the only thing it can be used for. And yet, towns that have some of the highest property taxes in the state get nothing. Last year, Borough of Glen Ridge got zero. Not $1. Even though the citizens of Glen Ridge paid something like $15 million of income tax, ostensibly for property tax relief. But that money was taken by the state, stolen by the state under false pretenses, and redistributed for the political benefit of the two political parties. That's where that money goes. So it's outright theft. If you and I were to do that in businesses, we would go to jail. In New Jersey, it's business as usual. So with that, I would go back to what I said originally. You really should focus on ballot access issues because that's the first step in any reclaiming of our democracy, or our democratic republic. And I would ask if anyone has any questions. And if not, go on.
In terms of the ballot access, how would you go about trying to change it?
You mean, what am I advocating for, or how would I?
How would you go about advocating?
Well, I think New York State has a much better system. I mean,
I'm not familiar with the New York State system.
well, in New York State, it's much easier to access the ballot, and people can run dually. So in New Jersey, you have to, in order to be considered a major political party, you have to get, I think it's 5% of the votes cast in the previous statewide election. In New York, the law is similar, but people can run under more than one party banner. So let's say, for example, Mayor Bloomberg. Well, Mayor Bloomberg's a bad example because he's independent. But let's say you're running for Governor Cuomo, I believe, ran on both the Democratic ticket and he ran on the Liberal ticket. The Liberal Party got enough votes for Governor Cuomo that allowed them to meet the threshold to remain a state-recognized political party. And so just that one difference alone makes it much more likely that you can get enough support and enough votes to appear on the ballot. What they've created in New Jersey is they've created a situation where it's very difficult, if not impossible, for a third party to have a fighting chance at election time because they aren't considered a recognized political party. Now, there's 4, I believe, I could have the number wrong. There are 4, quote-unquote, recognized political minor parties in New Jersey. But that level of recognition is basically down here, and the rest of the political parties are up here. It's almost meaningless. You can't do primaries, you can't do any of that stuff. You can't do anything that the 2 major parties can do. And the only reason they even have that is because of a lawsuit. They didn't even have that before. They sued about 10 years ago, and they got some little bone, very small, tiny little bone thrown to them, so that they could really, you have to ask yourself, how does the 2-party serve the people of New Jersey? And the answer is it doesn't. Two political parties in New Jersey, like the two political parties on the national level, are basically syndicates run for their own benefit and the benefit of their hierarchy. It doesn't benefit the people. It doesn't advocate the goals set forth in the Constitution. It doesn't bring us any closer to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which are set forth in the Declaration of Independence. It really serves only two purposes: to benefit those in the hierarchy of the Republican Party and to benefit those in the hierarchy of the Democratic Party. That's the purpose it serves. That's not a good purpose if you're the average citizen. And that's the commonality that we have, you have here, and that I have, and that frankly, 95% of the population has. If you ask them 95% of the population, they'll say exactly the same thing. They'll agree with you 100%. The system as it's construed now does not benefit them, does not benefit the public. It benefits the two syndicates. It's like living under, I don't know, prohibition in the 20s. It's just a different kind of model. Any other questions? Okay. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I wish you all the success in the world. And however you guys decide to move forward as far as your convention and your political acting, I think that you need to realize that you are very brave. And you should acknowledge that. Because you guys are doing every week what Cory Booker did last week. You're running into the burning building and dragging people out. The burning building is our country. Our country is on fire. Our country is in very, very bad shape. And the only way we can recover it is to be brave, to go into the lion's den like Jake was talking about. When people tell you you shouldn't do something, that's probably a good sign that you should do it. When the powers that be tell you you shouldn't be going into Warren County, you should go to Warren County. You know, when it's like, when people say it's not about the money, it's about the money. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon.